Let me tell you how it all really went down, because what happened in that old Victorian house on the edge of Maple Grove, it wasn't some quirky fixer-upper story. It was war with a woman who ran the HOA like her own personal fiefdom, a buried secret in my basement and a mystery that forced me to look my own family in the face, all wrapped up in peeling paint and the echo of old floorboards. Yeah, this is the kind of story that starts with a handshake and ends with a jail sentence. See, the day I moved in, the house practically creaked out a warning. I stepped off that U-Haul truck feeling like I'd finally found somewhere quiet enough for a man who'd rather talk to his typewriter than his neighbors. But Maple Grove had other plans. The house had that look: tall, sharp gables, wrap-around porch windows that watched you back. You could tell it had seen some stuff. Me, name's Logan Brooks, 45 detective novelist, proud introvert, self-declared enemy of small talk and forced block parties. I was 5 boxes deep into unpacking when she showed up. Now, there's a type of woman you never want to cross in suburbia, and Glenda Marshall is their queen. She came up my front path in a salmon blouse and enough hairspray to survive a monsoon. Didn't say hello, didn't even introduce herself. She just scanned my house with this look like I'd dumped a tractor in front of the White House. Eventually, she let it out. President of the Maple Grove Homeowners Association. The way she said it, you'd think it came with a crown and scepter. I tried to be polite, offered a handshake. She just eyed the rusted iron fence circling my yard lip so tight you could have sliced cheese with her smile. "Just wanted to welcome you," she said. "Though I must say this property is quite the departure from the architectural integrity of the neighborhood." I just grinned. "That's why I bought it. The fence," she sniffed, "doesn't meet HOA standards, and that old oak tree might drop a limb on someone's Prius." Here's where she messed up my house built before there even was a Maple Grove HOA was outside their kingdom. Told her so real calm. She squinted, and for the first time I heard her battle cry. "We'll see about that." Man, I should have known then. What followed was a slow drip of suburban poison letters from the HOA, each one stranger than the last. Wrong mailbox, clashing paint visual disharmony. Straight to the trash. By 6 months, I had a stack tall enough to wallpaper the guest room. They got creative. One said my porch lamp clashed with the modern lighting design of the neighborhood. It was almost funny right up until Glenda tried to get my property annexed into the HOA. 3 times. She lost every time. Legal boundaries, turns out, aren't as easy to fudge as a bake sale tally. But she didn't stop. The neighbors started to stare. I could feel it, the way folks looked a second too long. The rumors rolling in low, like morning fog. He's a writer, probably weird, probably dangerous. The only thing I was hiding was a half-finished manuscript and a coffee addiction, but nobody wanted to hear that. Down in my basement, my bunker, my fortress of solitude, I tried to ignore her. Figured if I starved the flames, maybe she'd run out of fuel. Problem is, with folks like Glenda, control is oxygen, and nothing burns hotter than not being able to control someone who's supposed to kneel. That's when things turn tiny things at first. A man with a camera for the newsletter. HOA drones loitering on the curb measuring things just in case. I put up cameras, collected every letter. If this went legal, I'd be ready. And every time Glenda passed, she smiled and waved, but there was this wild, brittle fury in her eyes, like she was waiting for a crack, waiting for me to slip. I didn't know it then, but she'd already started laying the groundwork for her next move. Not with letters, but with rumors. And then a missing brooch. The day Bill, neighbor on the next block, good guy, stopped me by the trash cans, I knew something was up. "Logan, just giving you a heads up. Glenda's saying you were at her house the day her grandma's emerald brooch disappeared." I almost laughed, but his face was serious. "She's saying you were lurking around. I told her that didn't sound like you, but you know how people are." Let me tell you, the only thing I was doing that weekend was getting a parking ticket in Portland. Had the receipts, but none of that matters when the neighborhood gossip mill gets going. You can't outrun a rumor on foot. Once it's out, it's already in people's heads. And there hadn't even been a garage sale, not that day, not ever. I checked my cameras, scoured the dates. Nothing. But this was new for Glinda. She was always petty, but this was straight-up character assassination. I started digging through everything I'd collected about her. That's when I found an old newspaper article about her late husband, Walter Marshall, private investigator. Turns out his last open case was tied to a property on the outskirts of Maple Grove. My house. There was a handwritten note on my deed from a previous owner, history in the floorboards. Ask Marshall. Goosebumps, man. Later that night, I get this anonymous email, a scan of a case report, Walter Marshall's letterhead mentioning evidence basement further inspection. That's when I realized Glinda wasn't after me. She was after whatever her husband never found. One afternoon, after a rare burst of Oregon sunlight, I came home from the grocery store and felt that something was off. You know that feeling, like the air's gone, still waiting for the other shoe to drop. I heard a noise from the basement. When I got down there, heart pounding, I found Glinda herself picking through my boxes with gloved hands, handbag open like she was casing a museum. I lost it. She tried to play innocent, but it was paper thin. Looking for my grandmother's brooch. Knew you'd hidden it. I told her to get out. She refused. So I did what any self-respecting man who'd had enough would do. I walked upstairs, closed the basement door, and slid the bolt. Called 911, made myself a cup of coffee, and waited for the show. The police showed up, led by Sheriff Douglas, an old-school guy who looked like he'd rather be fishing. I played him the footage of Glinda picking my lock, showed him the mess she'd made. She screamed about false imprisonment, but the evidence was crystal clear. Even the deputy smirked. Turns out Glinda had been caught with my rare books in her car, wrapped in her own floral scarf. They found messages on her phone, too, her right-hand man at the HOA, Stephen Wells, feeding her info and helping her target my collection. Stephen eventually flipped, handing me a flash drive full of emails and messages that laid out their entire plan, how Glinda was trying to finish her late husband's investigation, how she'd set me up, how she'd planned to destroy whatever secrets Walter Marshall had left behind. The real twist. That night, I found a hidden room under my basement, an old hatch, a safe sealed since the 1940s. Inside documents, photos, a tape recorder, and a picture of my mother standing with Walter Marshall in front of the house years before I ever set foot there. Let that sink in. This wasn't just an HOA feud. It was a legacy of secrets, paranoia, and unfinished business passed down like a bad inheritance. The next day, an anonymous email told me to meet behind the community center. It was Stephen, nervous, desperate, ready to save his own skin. He handed me a copy of a letter Glinda had planned the insurance fraud 8 months before she ever accused me. Her whole story built on a lie. The sheriff's department took it from there. Conspiracy, insurance fraud, falsification, you name it. In court, Glinda looked smaller, shrunken in her gray suit, all her pastel confidence gone. The prosecution rolled out the evidence, the videos, the books, the flash drive, Stephen's testimony. The jury didn't need long. Guilty on every charge. 3 years in prison, 1 to serve fines and restitution. Maple Grove breathed a sigh of relief so big you could feel it through the windows. Sitting by the fire that night, I finally opened the old scotch I'd been saving. The house felt different, still haunted maybe, but not by her anymore. I never figured out everything in those old documents about my mother. Some mysteries stay that way. But one note written by Walter Marshall stuck with me. Not her fault. She tried to stop it. B. Maybe someday I'll find out who or what B was. Maybe not. I turned the whole thing into a novel. Bestseller. My editor went nuts for it. Funny, isn't it? Sometimes the real world hands you a plot twist. No fiction could top. You'd think justice in suburbia would be rare, but every once in a while karma hits like a freight train. Glinda lost her throne. The HOA crumbled. Folks started talking to each other again. Even Carl jogged past my porch and tipped his hat. So here's my question for you. What would you have done locked in that old Victorian house with the whole neighborhood against you and a century of secrets under your feet? Where's the line between justice and revenge? Is there such a thing as too far, or does the universe really settle the score in the end? Drop your thoughts down below. Let me know what you think about right and wrong, about power, about the skeletons hiding in all our closets. And hey, if you've ever faced down an HOA tyrant or stumbled into a family secret that changed everything, you know where to find me.